So y'all, this is hands down the biggest first impressions video I will have done in a very, very long time. I got inspired and ordered a bunch of stuff all at once, and then it all arrived at the same time. And before I do any deep dives and, you know, really specific dedicated videos on the groupings of these products that are honestly going to be like more indexable and more like algorithm friendly, I just want to put them all on my face with y'all. So I did a typical thing that I do. I went on my Instagram and asked what we should chat about today. Today is also the new moon. I'm feeling very refreshed. I woke up with like a lot of clarity. So I am psyched to put a bunch of this stuff on my face with y'all today. We have the new Rituel Fille 3-drop Weightless Serum Foundation. I did test the complexion combination. This is so new to me. I didn't want to screw up the whole video. First step. And so I did already try this with the concealer that I'm going to be using today, and that is the new reformulation of the Stay Woke concealer from UOMA. I also bought the powder from UOMA, the Hydroblast. This is one of the weirdest things I've ever encountered. We're going to talk about it. I also have all 6 of the shades of the new NARS Afterglow liquid blush, because we're gonna do a deep dive on these, but I am gonna apply 2 of them today. I'm actually gonna demo this for the first time today. This is Picante from VB. I have a bunch of stuff I can't fit on my face today. I have like the Giorgio Armani, the new blush shade that's in a very fair desaturated mauve shade, and we're gonna do a deep dive on all my desaturated mauve shades, but I had to reorder Pat McGrath Flirtatious because mine evaporated into thin air. I don't know where it is. I bought a new version of the Ashen Ember Eye Soot in Mineralia from Rituel Fille to kind of, you know, go with the vibe, because they changed this component, which was just such a nightmare before. So we're gonna be using that. And we're gonna end up with something I think that's quite like smoky, sultry, sparkly. Something kind of ethereal, smoky eye. And that's why I kind of dressed up. This is the closest I get to wearing like a whole lot of black at any given time, because I wanted it to be a mood. So that was a really long intro. Let's go ahead and jump in. So I actually am going to start first with the Dream Beam from Kosas, because my skin is finally clearing up. I don't know if it looks like it because I've still been doing extractions up here. That's a nice word for picking, because as I'm using a ton of glycolic and like really trying to clear everything out and it's working, I'm still getting a bunch of stuff that's just popping up and needs to be like freed. Dream Beam is something that I didn't want to use while I was breaking out because it does add a little bit of slip to your skin. I already have sunscreen on. I already have my Tula on, but I just figured like, why not? Because it's got this color cancellation quality to it that looks very similar to my Beauty Pie under eye corrector. And I was like, do that to my whole face. Just do it. So this actually will be the experiment, because I put the Rituel Fille foundation on right on top of my, like, you know, overnight skincare. I didn't wash my face first. So we'll see if this changes anything, because I found it to be quite thin and kind of mattifying, which is interesting because it reminds me of the Kosas, the original Kosas tinted oil. Not the foundation, but like way back in the day when they, you know, were so groundbreaking with their tinted oil, which is a very polarizing product. It reminds me of that a little bit, but it has more cosmetic technology to it. It's more gripping. It isn't just this, you know, suspension of pigment in oil. It feels like it's got less liquid to pigment ratio. You know, it's just a little bit more evolved, but we shall see how it goes on top of this. Is that not just lovely? It's so pretty. So just to be the friction in your sheets. I was in the city yesterday with my best friend, Leslie, and she is here from Portland, but we lived in Texas together for a very, very long time. Like, we didn't live together, but we worked together, and like we lived in Austin pretty much, you know, at the same time, and we moved away pretty much at the same time. Yeah, I made a reel of her trying to remember the name of the band Fall Out Boy, because we are senior citizens, and she just could not bring it to memory, and it was fantastic. It was so funny. I have to go pick her back up. She just stayed the night with some friends in the city last night, and then she's gonna be here all weekend too. So excited. So I got the shade 110, I wanna say. Yeah, great job, Khaki. Wait till you have it all over your hands and then try and pick the bottle up. I'm pretty sure it's 110. And what I did was I messaged Tom. I said, what color are we? What shade are we in this? Because we are skin twins, at least, you know, from a complexion match situation. We tend to both go towards neutral, even if we are a little bit different in terms of what our actual skin tone is. So that was 3 drops. And unlike the first one, I did actually buy the 3-drop when they did the lab samples, when they were selling off the lab samples. I feel like that one was like, you did 3 drops and you're like, are you sure? No, this is for sure. Like that was 3 drops. And we're good. Wow, I'm actually kind of excited about how that looks over the Dream Beam because it was pretty mattified on top of literally nothing, you know, after your skin soaks everything up overnight. I like how it's kind of responding to that texture of the sunscreen showing through. And the fact that like maybe this is soaking up a little bit of liquid, but also I think, because it is damp, it shouldn't be soaking up too much, but also that it's just really creating a much more even finish and it's very agreeable. Sponge seems to be something that this foundation really likes. Pretty, 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 pretty. And an excellent shade match. So that reflective quality is from the Dream Beam. That is not coming from the Rituel de Fille, but I would typically use some kind of primer anyway, either to give me a dewier appearance or an illuminated appearance or both. So this would typically be how it would look on me anyway. You know, there's always gonna be something under there and it is not full coverage. So it's gonna show through. It is so refreshing though to have my skin clearing up because I was just leaning so hard on filters. Even when I was like wearing makeup, I was just so self-conscious about my breakouts. And now I'm just like, cool, I can just, you know, throw in a little bit of stretch concealer and like go. That's all I wore yesterday was stretch concealer and that new blush from M Cosmetics and Demure. Like that was all I wore all day and it felt great. Concealer. I liked the original UOMA Stay Woke concealer. And UOMA, if you're unfamiliar, is a Black-owned brand that does an amazing job of formulating slightly differently, at least in their foundations. I'm not sure about their concealers, but at least in their foundations, they formulate a little bit differently based on groupings of skin tones. So it functions on the assumption that deeper skin tones are probably going to need a little bit more oil control and that the fairest of skin tones are probably going to need more hydration. Like they've just really thought of everything, essentially. And I did like their foundation, I did like their concealer, but this new reformulation of the Stay Woke concealer, I feel like, because they do still sell the old one, they call it the OG Stay Woke. I feel like this one is more me. You know, it's more creamy, it's more hydrating. And I did end up buying this in the shade White Pearl T1, thinking that that was going to be probably the best match for me. I mean, obviously that's why you would buy a shade, right? Because I think that the last one was T0.5, but like there are a lot of shades. They do a really good job. There are tons of shades. I do think that this is a little bit, like, it's so close to my skin tone that it might be dark, but maybe not. You know what I mean? Like, it's like if I were wearing a foundation that were like half a shade too light, I wouldn't be able to use this concealer, but it's kind of a bomb match. And when like I said, I kind of applied the whole complexion combination together first before I did the video, and this just blends out famously. It's so smoothing and beautiful. Look at that match. It almost freaks me out because it's like you think, oh, okay, well, if I can't see it when it goes on because it's like lighter by contrast to my foundation, then I must have gone too dark. And it's like, no, it's just that dead on. I don't know, I think iron sharpens iron, you know? And so these brands finally getting recognition for being so good at putting out very accurate skin tone matches has made, like, rising tides raise all ships. I feel like other brands have really had to get their crap together to keep up. All right, let's look at some questions while I blend this. Look at it. It just goes to nothing. After I put this on before, I went into several rooms in my house with like several different bathrooms or like, you know, bedrooms or whatever places where there were mirrors so that I could check it in different light because I was like, uh-oh, is this like looking okay under my lights? And then I get someplace where, you know, it's less flattering and all of a sudden it's like glowing orange on me. It's wild how good of a match it is. It's a little bit even, like it has a little color correction to it because it's a touch rosy underneath my eyes, but look at that! I should swatch it against my Givenchy so that we can see how the shades differ because I'm pretty sure that the Givenchy is like a really good close shade match for me, but I still think that it's lighter and a little bit yellower than my skin tone. Like, I can't even figure out where I put it that I haven't blended it yet because the shade match is just so dead on. And that's always a nightmare because then I see it in post and I'm like, oh crap, there's like a concentrated area of concealer just sitting there unblended. But so we are getting that kind of like levitating off my face appearance that I get from like the Hydro Grip. Like if I look really closely, it's almost like the makeup is living on top of a layer of something else on my skin, and I think that's the Dream Beam. And I didn't put on enough of the Dream Beam to function as its own SPF. Do you know what I mean? I was already wearing the Tula and it had already had a chance to dry. And so I was like not super generous with it, but like, you know, under normal circumstances, I would have wanted to put a lot more of it on than that. And it is making the makeup behave differently. So it's not bad. We'll just kind of see how it affects like sludginess and stuff as we go through, because it, you know, we're gonna put that to the test. We're applying a lot of different textures today. That combo, what an unexpected combo. Like you don't think of Rituel de Fille and UOMA in the same sentence. You just don't, you know what I mean? But they go really, really well together. Like look at that, that looks great. Okay, so in the spirit of this being kind of UOMA-centric, it's not really UOMA-centric, but it's going to be with the powder and everything. I'm going to go in with my UOMA Contour stick here in the shade 3. Just the number 3 khaki, it's not that hard. I'm putting that on a BK106 and we will address some questions. I really think that every time I mention astrology in these, I said happy new moon, all the questions end up being astrology oriented, and I just want to kick it off by saying I'm not that good at this stuff. It's like bad astrology. I cannot apologize enough in advance for just like how spotty my knowledge is. I just enjoy it. I enjoy learning about it, but I'm definitely learning about it. I am not an expert in it at all. Oh, I'm just loving the way this looks. I can almost feel the way that everything is starting to dry down and like my skin's trying to like soak up the moisture and stuff, like in a good way. You know, it's kind of settling and drying down on its own. It feels a little bit more secure than it did right when I put it on. Okay, what do you think about Libras? What do I think about Libras? I mean, okay, I think anything when you're talking about generalizations is like, you know, it's gonna be wildly inaccurate, right? You're not gonna be able to sum up anything just by saying like Libras, because you have your sun sign, right? And that's what you're talking about. It's like your sun sign is your main sign, and it's where your sun was when you were born, and that's what you're talking about when you say Libra. So Libra energy is actually a cardinal sign, which you don't really think about because Libras are kind of indecisive, but you have your cardinal signs, which are Aries, Cancer, Capricorn, and Libra. And Libra's just kind of a funny exception where it's like they are like effective in terms of leadership and ideas and stuff the way that you would think of a cardinal sign, but I feel like it's more about like appeasing the group and is everybody having a good time versus am I having a good time, which is like how Aries are, you know? But my child is a Libra sun and he's a Sagittarius rising. He is one of the like, I don't know, best combos in my opinion. Of course, I think so because I made him in my belly. But one of the biggest things that I notice about him, and also my brother-in-law who is 2 days before him, also a Libra, is this like fixation sometimes on things being a certain way and not being inflexible necessarily, but being thrown off really easily by change, which is again, like not what you would expect from a cardinal sign, but they're very particular. And what they end up doing is being incredibly prepared. So like, for example, my brother-in-law was like afraid that his tuxes weren't going to be done by his wedding. And so he made everybody book a rental for like a backup tux, you know, which they didn't end up needing, but like that's the kind of stuff that like keeps him up at night, is just like being less prepared than he should be kind of thing. And I see my kid, I mean, I'm sure that this is like a toddler thing, but his obsession with things fitting neatly inside of other things is unmatched. I've never seen anyone, like, you'll just see these artifacts around the house where he has found something, like an animal, like a toy animal whose 4 legs fit perfectly inside of like some saucer or something, and he'll have just placed it then. There's like all these little cairns like that, you know, where you're just like, huh, I guess Simon figured it out. Or like, I was looking so hard for the Vapor Rub. I was coughing my face off one night and I was like, I know it was right here on my bedside table. Where did it go? And then the next morning he just like picks up my glasses case and he's carrying it around the house and I hear something, you know, thumping around in there. And he just goes, look, and opens it, and nestled in there so perfectly is this little stick of Vapor Rub. And I was like, it was there the whole time. It was sitting right there. If I would have opened my glasses case, I would have found it. But that's his thing. Is like when he's quiet, he's fitting things inside of other things. And I attribute it to Libra energy. He exhibits a lot of what I think are like Libra traits. But what do I think of them? Of course, I think the absolute world of them. They're lovely. They're lovely people. I have several Libra friends, and I'm an Aries, so it's like we're opposite ends, and so we actually complement each other really well. It takes a little bit of maturity to recognize that, but we do complement each other really well. So we're gonna go with blush next, because I wanna go ahead and show you all the colors as they look more true on the skin, you know, outside of the contour, versus putting bronzer on and you just kind of seeing it distorted by the bronzer. So I have a few initial thoughts on the NARS Afterglow liquid blushes. First and foremost, I opened one and I was like so excited about the color of the package because I was like, wow, that really looks like the color on the inside. I opened Brazen first and I was like, oh wow, that's awesome, you know? And then I opened each subsequent one and the packages were all the same color. Like, yeah, they have the stickers on the bottom, but that would be so cool if like the actual bottles were like the color. It's a beautiful color, but wouldn't it be cool if they actually reflected the shade on the inside? I rarely think like that. I rarely have those kinds of like pie in the sky wishes about something that's just like, why didn't you think of this? But it was truly an expectation versus reality because I opened Brazen first. So I'm gonna apply today Behave and Brazen because those are my main shades, right? That I would typically apply of any blush or typically buy of any blush is a cool-ish pink and a warm-ish apricot. If I could describe these, they are serum-y in a really beautiful way. They do leave a little bit of like a glycerin finish on the skin. It's gonna be more dewy looking than like a, you know, matte beauty wand or something like that, but they do dry down all the way. And they're really sheer and gorgeous. They're not as sheer as the Surratt, but they still have a really nice buildable quality to them. So we're gonna start with this one, and then we're gonna go in with this one. So again, that's Behave. Natalie, you're gonna get a lot out of this. Then I'm gonna put Behave on first, and then I will apply a pop of Brazen. And I'm gonna be putting that on, well, I'll put it directly on my skin the same way I would with the Charlotte Tilbury matte ones because I feel like that's actually the best way to do it. And I'm gonna spread it out with the BK112. What does Venus placement really mean or do in a person's chart? So that's interesting. So Venus is the ruler of Taurus and the ruler of Libra. And it is all about nice things and luxury and sensuality and enjoying yourself. And I mean, it's a grounded energy, right? It's about kind of being terrestrial and enjoying what it is to be a human being on Earth, you know, not just like this Aquarian, like constantly thinking about the abstract nature of life and things like that. Like it's a little bit more practical, but it's also like dreamy in the sense of it, you know, it can kind of manifest as like, you know, sexual fantasies or things like that. It's also how you love. And like my Venus is in Pisces. So I think I told Kelly Gooch that. She goes, oh, you just love everyone. And I was like, I do, I fall in love easily. And you kind of have to like, I always say you can't change your nature, but it is important to just like understand your nature because, you know, you can understand when you're being a silly goose, right? Okay, Natalie, that's like one good coat of Behave. She was like, I need a preview to the review. You know, she's like, I need to know now before the review comes out. And I told her, I said on Behave specifically, and I was like, it is so you, because she's paler than I am and she just kind of wears all around a less pigmented face of makeup than I do. And like Behave is the ultimate just like sheer wash of cool pink. It's so good. And did you see how easy that was? Because it's got this, like, it's almost like the Milk Makeup, all the Bionics, the way that they're a little bit thicker, they're a little bit more like gel. This is a little more serum-y, but they have that same way that they dry down with a really nice finish to them, but they dry down completely. Very impressed with that. So yeah, y'all, the way that people tend to ask me about like what something means in their chart, I highly recommend, because there is a completely free version. I pay for my version of the Chani app because it's like, I like all the stuff that they offer. But I mean, you can get plenty of stuff out of it just by downloading it for free. And you can see the meaning of all of your placements, you know? And it's like, here's your placement, and then here's what house it's in for you based on your rising, and then you can, you know, read all about yourself. Who doesn't want to do that? So here we go with Brazen. And again, this is the closest to like, you know, a coral or an apricot that's in here. And I am applying it in a more concentrated way. Now I could have just left that cool tone, but we're gonna go pretty hard on the eyes because the shade that I got in the Rituel Defeat eyeshadow is dark. You know, it's like smoky, smoky. So we really want the cheeks to be able to stand up to it, right? But they're as easy to work with as the Charlotte Tilbury matte ones, but they just don't dry as matte. And that's a high compliment coming from me because I love those things. And we're in this season right now of every brand putting out like liquid cheek products, and I think we're off to an auspicious start. It's been a long time since I've been like truly excited about something, a new trend happening in makeup. You know, it's like I can find a product I like or that I can get excited about, but like the word trend just puts me off in general. But liquid cheek products, long wearing stuff that just goes on and looks like that. Yeah, like, I'm down for that. That's awesome. And I like immediately my brain, it was like a impulsive thought. My brain goes, so NARS, when are we getting bronzers? You know, when are we getting contours? When are we getting highlights of this? Because it's very, 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 very pretty. Very easy to use. Now, one thing I will say about these is that there's not going to be any residue on your brush. So like, don't put it here and expect to be able to then take the rest of it and put it on your nose or something. Like, you're going to have to apply it directly to it. So it's like, if I want a little bit on my chin, this is risky, but if I want like a tiny bit on my chin, I need to apply it there because it might blend from here out, but it's not going to blend from here to here to here. You know, you're not going to really be able to like redistribute the product. It just doesn't really do that, which I kind of like, you know what I mean? It just sort of stays local to where you put it. Isn't that nice? And I haven't powdered yet, you know? Like, it's all hybrid texture and has its own dry down. It's really, really lovely and intelligent in that way. For bronzer, I kind of want to use the Saie again. I really liked it. It's a little dewier than I would prefer, especially for all of this that I already have on my face, but I still want to use it because I really like the color of it. Did I swatch it already against the Thrive? Because I feel like it's that fair. Okay, so there's the Sunmelt right there. And then there's Thrive Mauve. Mauve is gonna still be a little bit more like gray and a little bit rosier, but I just feel like it's also a lot more like pigmented and a little bit more matte. And so it's like gonna always look a little bit different. But the Sunmelt is really, it's really doing it for me, you know? Like, that color is good. And I never really got a chance to like decide whether I like the formula because the color didn't work for me, and now the color really works for me, so I like it a lot. Y'all, I got a video message from a viewer last night. Sitting on her front porch, she's like, I'm stoned and I had a great idea for you. And she was like, you need to talk about that brush, the BK105, but you need to put, I like big butts behind it, but I like big brushes because we call it the dump truck brush. I just want to say I appreciate you. You're wild and crazy. That's a funny thing to say. I'm probably not going to do that, but it was very, very funny. And I appreciate you thinking of me, having your stoned thoughts shared with me. It was fantastic. She also had like just done her makeup and everything. It was a very, very cute message. It was very complete in its adorability. Oh, I'm so here for like this super like subtle bronze, you know, that's very effective. It's making me keep reaching for the Pat McGrath bronzers, but y'all, every time I try them, I'm like, what is off about them? It's kind of like the opposite of when I'm working with something and I keep thinking it's gonna disappoint me and then it doesn't, like the Haus Labs blushes, but like it stops me from necessarily giving them some kind of crazy glowing review for like a long time because I'm like, surely next time they'll disappoint me, and I'm just, you know what I mean? It's like my brain is too cynical about it. It's like the opposite of how I feel about these, where it's like every time I'm like, this is gonna be the time. This is gonna be the time that they're gonna blow my mind and knock my socks off, and then I put them on and I'm like, I can't put my finger on what's wrong. Like, it's not bad, but like I can't put my finger on why it's not lighting up my life, you know? I don't know. It's just the colors. The colors are a little bit weird. So we need to talk about this because this is not a new idea, but I will say it's a different execution on a concept. So this is the Hydroblast powder from UOMA. I really just love UOMA's brain. You know what I mean? Like, so they're talking to Amanda and I'm just marveling. I'm like, I love your brain. The brains behind UOMA, they're doing some really interesting things. It doesn't feel gimmicky, it feels purposeful, and they have now put out one of these powders that is infused with water. Here I am shaking it like an idiot, and there's tons of powder now. But this one doesn't have like one of these, like a cover on it, which it should, because there should be something to keep it from drying out. Every other one that I've ever used, the Beckham one, the Prescriptives one, the Magic Powder, like, again, this is a concept that has been done before where it's like you put on the powder and it has water in it. And so it actually feels cooling on your skin. But the package is a little bit odd in that sense where there was like, there was only a disposable. Like there was only like a peel off and then a peel off. There was no like reusable lid. And then also, this is more water than I have ever seen in one of these formulas. They had a percentage on here on the box, but I tossed the box. But it is a really, really high percentage of water that's in this. In fact, you can like see it down here. You can see it like washing around. And it wets your brush, which is unusual. It's not like a really like wild, like soaking wet kind of situation, but you do notice that your brush is wet afterwards. It's dry now, but it was wet afterwards the first time that I did it. So I'm gonna use it. And they do say don't bake with this because it'll darken your concealer if you use too much of it. So I'm gonna use it on just like a regular brush. Ooh, that's cute. Maybe we'll use that. That's a good one. That's cute. Okay, this is the BK Travel 107. We'll use this. And we're just going to do a little bit of that. I don't mind a little bit of darkening underneath my eyes because I use bronzer to do that anyway. It does feel really beautiful and cooling. The first time that I used it, I did put it all over my face and then I put the blush on top of it. And I was like, I don't know if I loved that. I think it's more of like a you know, great texture to finish with because it's going to give you a little bit more of like a moisturized finish, but I don't really know how makeup likes to go on top of it for me. Isn't that interesting? So it's hard to explain how it feels. It really does feel cold and wet when you put it on. And if you've never experienced that, you got to try it once in your life. You know, find a friend who has it, like one of them. There are, like I said, there are brands who do this occasionally. Like Becca is now no longer, and so is Prescriptives is also no longer. But I have always really enjoyed these kinds of formulas because I can use all the moisture I can get. Plus, it is a parlor trick. It is definitely an enjoyable, fun little addition. You know, this just feels like a treat when you're putting it on. So on the places that I put it, which is basically everywhere but like where I have my bronzer, it does still give a mattified appearance. And it's definitely applying more product than it would if it were like the Kosas, where I can just kind of pick that up off the pressed powder dome, as it were, and you just end up with a really light dusting. I feel like this does distribute a little bit more heavily. It feels like a wet version of the Glossier Wowder, you know? And that can be, I don't know, I just think it's really cool. I think it's really, really interesting. Does add some coverage. So we did lose a little bit of the blush, you know? So I might go back in with my like Armani blush here with the coral one, you know, when we're done. Because I'm gonna put some of that in my eye look anyway. Now I did get the new one, like I said, the new shade that's exclusive to the Armani website. It finally came in the mail. Look at that. That's super tempting. That's actually really tempting to try that today. We might grab it. Next thing we're gonna do is my eyes because I wanna kind of make some decisions on my eyes before we, you know, finish out the rest of my face. Oh, I also forgot to mention this, but I have the new Victoria Beckham eyebrow liners too. And I think that the contour ones are getting sent to me also. Getting PR from Victoria Beckham Beauty is such a dream come true. It is never lost on me, y'all. They could send me a carrot in the mail and I'd be like, it's a Victoria Beckham Beauty, a carrot, and it has been bestowed upon me, and therefore I'm the luckiest girl in the world because I spent so much money on all their releases in the beginning because I have just been, well, honestly, not even the beginning, until about 6 months ago, because I'm just so darned impressed with everything that they do. And so just like getting PR from them and getting the acknowledgement that like I'm a creator, that they're just like, hey, we like what you do with our stuff. I'm just like, it's awesome. It feels great. So here is the Hindash Color Fluid in Canvas. I didn't use this the first time that I tried this eyeshadow because I couldn't find it, but were it a snake, it would have bitten me because it was sitting right the heck in front of me. I wonder sometimes about like the Southern idioms, like if that's something that translates. Snake, it bit me, means it was right there in front of me. Honestly, Southern idioms are not that difficult to decipher. I remember I was like taking my husband to meet my family, I guess it was maybe for the first time, I think, and we had rented a beach house, or we'd borrowed a friend's beach house for Christmas, and I was like driving through and I was trying to find this house. I had never been there before, and I'm on the phone with my mom and I've got her on speakerphone and I was like, Mom, I cannot see 5 feet in front of me. This is crazy. I turned my brights off and I still can't see. And she goes, oh yeah, it's pea soup out there. She's like, you gotta be careful, you know, and like stayed on the phone with her until I got there and she navigated me in. But I get off the phone and Mike's like, pea soup? What do you mean pea soup? Like, why do you call it pea soup? And I was like, it looks like pea soup. The fog looks like pea, it's not, there's not really anything more to it than that, okay? We're not a particularly cryptic bunch, you know? Things are pretty straightforward, so yeah, it's funny to me. All right, so here's what I'm gonna do first. I'm gonna put on some of the Victoria Beckham Pecan. No, that didn't just happen. Wow. Okay, nothing broke, but the whole gosh darn diddlin' stick came out. We're good. I just have to be more careful next time. Anyway, I'm gonna use that to build my outer corner shadow here because it's just so easy, and it's just gonna be a guide so that I don't get super carried away with that really dark shade and then have to like work my way out of trouble. I just know me. And also that formula, which they did not change the formula. It is just a new component because before the component was so tiny you couldn't get your finger or a tool in it, and it was incredibly frustrating and wildly expensive. That formula does spread. Like it just keeps going, you know? And so I probably should have chosen my brush first. There we go. It's really easy to get it to blend, but it's kind of also easy to get it to continue to blend forever. And so it's like, I want to make sure that I've got some guardrails in place. Now this is, ooh, that's drying down fast because it's on top of the Hindash. That's okay, we can always put more on. Oh, I just love these. They're so easy and beautiful. So the key to a smoky eye not looking like a raccoon eye, if you are opposed to the raccoon eye, is to make sure that you're getting it outside of the like sight line of your eyelid. Because a lot of times what we would do, like in, you know, when I was in high school or whatever, we would take our black shadow and we would just like put it all over our eyelid, and then when you closed your eyes you had like this like circle, and then when you opened your eyes you couldn't really see, I just did it again, you couldn't really see the actual darkness. All you saw, all it did was accentuate kind of the raccoon circular nature of your eyes. And it's like, if you want to get something that's a little bit more elegant looking, and you know, if you're gonna put all the work in, you can actually like achieve an even more flattering shape. It's like, just build a little bit more shadow out here so that when your eyes are open, you still see it. God, are those just lovely. Can't get enough of them. Oh, and this is a BK 206. It's a little bit flatter, so it's like easier to get it to spread around. Okay, ooh, love it. So let's go in with the Ash and Ember eye set from Rituel to Fille. Again, this is in the shade Mineralia. The new component is glass. I was not expecting that. I don't know why I wasn't expecting that. I guess it's because the old ones were plastic, but it's really nice. And you know, even though I can't get my whole finger in there, it's mainly because I have long nails. So I think that, like, you know, this is still a vast improvement. I can get my whole finger in there. I can. Yeah, it's a vast improvement. So It is a little prone to fallout, which is the other reason that I primed. I just want it to behave properly. But I do love the little bit of like a gold glint on it. It does have a little bit of a shift and a little bit of sparkle, but it's mostly just a really beautiful satin color. And people have raved for years and years about these formulas because they are really high quality. I've never dismissed them as poor quality. It's just so much better to have them in this delivery system. I'm gonna use that same brush and just kind of work the edges. Again, this has no problem blending. It almost blends too much for my taste, you know? You can almost wipe it right back off. It's kind of like a Anastasia's shadow in that respect. I'm gonna work a smaller brush in there. I have this one. I really like this one. This is the 210, and it's a pencil brush. It's just a great little pencil brush. And I'm filling in kind of this spot that loves to shed product on my eyes, because it does. It just likes to shed the product. What's nice about this, actually, this formula, is how it's not so shimmery that you can't use it in the crease. You know, you can build it up and get a little bit of a glint out of it, but it can spread out and be matte enough that it still absorbs light and like can make a believable illusion. So it's a really good kind of like, not one and done, but all in one smoky eye color, because it can like smoke out, you know? So throwing a little bit of that on the outer corner underneath. Very pigmented and can go, like I said, all the way to full saturation or super, super sheer. So I'm gonna do the Alexandra Anele trick of blending this with my bronzer, especially if you're working with something that's black. This is not black, but like she did a tutorial on like doing a black smoky eye without looking like a panda essentially. And the key is actually to take your bronzer very similarly to the way that I, you know, use it to like make a better gradient between my concealer and my blush, but use maybe even a darker color of bronzer, of a powder bronzer, and let that be the thing that helps blend the very, you know, contrasty shade into the rest of your skin without looking like, well, first of all, without looking like a panda, but also without it like kind of spreading all over your face. I'm gonna go with the darker shade here in the Victoria Beckham Smoky Eye Brick. Nope, that's not the one. Matte Bronzing Brick. And that's going to break up that line of demarcation. Look at that. And build just a little bit of warmth up there. Thank you, Alexandra. And I'll use that out here as well. Not too low, but just make sure it's like something where there's nothing distracting. And then I can take that smaller brush in the lighter shade here, which is, you know, the savior shade in this whole thing for me. And that's what I'll use to blend under here, over here, because I don't want too dark right on my inner corner because it makes my eyes look too close together. I think I will go in with Oyster though, from Victoria Beckham. And I still think that there's not enough sparkle to this eye. Like I still want a little bit, so I might pull out Mink from Victoria Beckham. Something that I meant to say up front, if you're new here and you're like, wow, Kaki's constantly using new releases and it makes me feel pressure to also try and keep up with new releases. That is not ever the intention of my channel. I am trying to show y'all what's out there so we can help decipher what actually is worth your money if you even are in the mood to spend any money on something new. That's why I am reviewing. It's like Consumer Reports. It's not so that you can kind of be like me and have some kind of really overwhelming stash of makeup. It's so that we can not just find out for ourselves like which ones are the best, but also that you can see them like, you know, compared to other things in as much detail as I can achieve. And you can only buy one of something if that's what you're looking for, you know? Okay, this is gonna be weird to try and show you, but so Mink is up here and it's got that really nice warmer brown base and then kind of a cool taupe, almost silver shift. And then the Ash and Ember in Mineralia, look at the weird shift on that. It's got a little touch of burgundy. Do you see that? It almost looks like a mistake. And I will say, like, it's so subtle that you almost don't detect it on the eyes. I wish it had a little bit more, you know? That kind of makes me want to go towards something like that instead. Like something a little more red. Because maybe Mink is gonna totally cover it up and I need to be going towards something that's like a little bit more of that like burgundy glitter shift. Oh! got me having another Rituel de Fille Ash and Ember eye soot in Exuvier, which would go incredibly well with this. And you can see the stupid old component next to the not stupid new component. Plastic, glass. Look at that. Look at the difference in the size. So, love when that happens. I hope this turns out well. So I'm gonna actually just stick that pencil brush in there and hope for the best, because it's just not going to be a fingers type situation. Well, maybe once I get it on, it can be a fingers type situation. Cool. Yeah, that adds like a really nice, not just a warmth, but also something a little bit creepy. And like, I'm always into that, so. Now I don't even really feel like I need glitter, you know? It's just kind of spooky. Hell yeah. Oh, this has been a different direction than I thought. I'm liking that. I'm gonna do my brow pencil, but I'm gonna keep y'all on camera for it because it's the new one from Victoria Beckham. And I got 2 shades, and I will swatch them for you. So it's a very tiny pyramid shape, you know, little baby teardrop triangle kind of thing, but it's really, really tiny. And they sent me, I couldn't decide, so they went ahead and sent me medium brown and light brown right here. So I'm gonna use light brown because light brown is still pretty dark. Well, let's take another question while I do this. Your opinion on open relationships and such. I don't know if I've ever been asked that. I mean, for me, I am a serial monogamist. I am a naturally, like, I don't know. Because I don't want to generalize that people who can function in open relationships aren't like stability oriented or don't, you know what I mean? That they don't get jealous or whatever. Like, I don't know. I just know that like I wouldn't, like when I really, really like somebody, it would be really hard for me to like share them, you know? And I also think that like there's always, regardless of the agreed upon whatever, I feel like that's always kind of a recipe for a power imbalance. You have to be really mature. And I've definitely heard of like plenty of situations that work out just fine, but like everybody's really got to be on the same page. And I mean, I listened to like Savage Love, that, I mean, I haven't listened to it lately, but when I was painting over last summer, I was on like a bender of Savage Love, and he talks about, you know, how he's monogamish, you know what I mean? Or has an open relationship and things like that. And I don't know, I don't really know how to generalize about it, because I really think that like it depends on your agreement with your main partner and what it is that you're hoping to get out of a relationship, and everybody's personalities are different. That's something that's like taken a long time for me to recognize in relationships. Is this not like you are, you know, bringing yourself to a relationship with all the experience that you've had before, and therefore you're like building directly on that experience with the next person, and like you're automatically like better at relationships. Like, that's not true. You are getting to know a completely new person. And so it's like, it's all about kind of open communication in order to get on the same page about what you're trying to get out of a relationship, like what a relationship means to you. And I don't think that anything outside of like, you know, truly being like malicious and wanting to hurt someone on purpose, I don't think there's anything that you could come into a relationship wanting and being honest about wanting, as long as you're acknowledging your feelings and communicating them, which is easier said than done, of course, but like, I've definitely seen it work. I don't know if I have the maturity level for it though. Or even not just the maturity level, not to say that like, oh, I think that like people who are in monogamous relationships are immature. It's like more so just like, I think I'm too like puritanical or something in my mind. Like I was just kind of, I have a lot of stuff like that where it's like I would need to like unblock it in my brain because of just how I was raised in like church culture and stuff, you know? And I know I should unblock it. I try to be as open-minded as I can, but I just don't have any experience in that area. So that's light brown. And that's surprising to me. I mean, I guess it's technically light brown, but it's still quite pigmented, you know? I feel like dark brown would be way too dark. So glad that I ended up with 2 so that I could try them and show you. So yeah, I'm gonna do my eyeliner and my mascara and the rest of my brows, like my pomade and stuff, and then we will come back and like, there's just a lot of finishing touches that need to happen. Into the eye look. I do feel like we need a little bit more something on the cheeks, and I don't know now if I think that it's like coral or if we should actually use the new, I mean, why not, right? The new Armani, the very specific shade. So this is the shade 10, and you can only get it on the Armani website. I think this brush is dry now, so here we go. Now you're not getting to see it in its purest form here, because it's on top of so many other things, but ooh, wait, it has a little bit of a shift to it? I was not anticipating that. Interesting, interesting. But I'm glad that I reordered Pat McGrath Flirtatious, because this is gonna be a really valuable comparison between the two, because Pat McGrath Flirtatious has always just kind of been the answer for me in these cases, where it's like, oh, what else does this look need? And like, I still feel like I probably would have preferred the Pat McGrath over what I just did, you know? So I said that I was going to do this, but now it's like, I think we're in a totally different direction. You know, we're not in Apricottville anymore. Like I could go and put a bunch of like, you know, coral blush on and put it in my eyes, and like that would bring it together. In fact, I do want to put a little bit of what I just put in my eyes. I'm gonna grab a little bit of that Armani. And this is just one of my favorite tricks. Anytime stuff just needs to come together a little bit more, put a little bit of your blush into your eye look, and it'll just make everything look more unified, you know? And this is just such a subtle color. I'm just using it to make kind of a halo around everything. And if you're like, wow, Kaki, that's a smoky eye, but like you aren't lining your waterline, if I could find my white waterline pencil, I would use that, but like currently I like the glowing line underneath my eyes, especially when it's something that's a little bit spooky like this. Like I just think that it looks really cool and ethereal. So on my lips, I'm going to use Natalie from My Skin Trust just sent me this voice memo yesterday, among others, that was like, oh my gosh, if you haven't tried Pink Opal from LH Cosmetics, you need to. And I was like, I have Pink Opal. So that's what we're gonna use. It's a perfect lightweight balm formula with just the right amount of color. And I really feel like it kind of pulls the tone of that smaller container of, what is it called? Exuvier. It like pulls a lot of that tone back into the look, and it elevates it a little bit. Like it does still make it look a little bit more done. Okay, and then the one thing that I forgot to do, my typical Victoria Beckham bronzer, to just camouflage underneath the eyes a little bit so that it's not like glowing. And I already spritzed myself with Fix Plus Magic Radiance, but like, then I powdered more on top of it. So we ended up with kind of a more mattified look, right? Yeah, we have fallout from that eyeshadow, which annoys me. I haven't had to deal with fallout in such a long time that Fallout Boy, that it feels a little bit silly, and like I feel like I can be kind of bratty about it because there's so little stuff in my collection that I interact with that gives me any fallout. So I'm gonna just use regular Fix Plus to just give the sheen back, because y'all know I love a nice glycerin finish. And while that dries, let's do some preliminary thoughts on all of the stuff that I just tried. Okay, because there's so much. Starting with the Rituel Defee 3-drop Weightless Foundation Serum, Weightless Serum Foundation. Beautiful shade match. Surprisingly, really kind of snatched, you know, like it has a really fantastic finish to it without a ton of coverage, and it does make my skin look a lot more perfected than I was thinking it was going to. I hate when cat hair sticks to my face, and I'm a big fan. It doesn't have the frankincense smell to it either. Tom was quick to point that out because the lab sample definitely did. So this is just quite lovely so far. I really dig it. I think it's really, really pretty. Like, is it the prettiest thing that I have? I'm not sure yet. It does need kind of help from other things in order to not be maybe a little bit more dry looking than I typically like. Like, it's kind of gathering air, you know? And that could be the concealer too, or the way that they're interacting with one another, but like it didn't give me like total magic, but I really like the way that this turned out, and it is weightless. I would just say it's like a little bit more for like combo skin. I don't know just right off the bat if I would recommend it for people who have really dry skin. You know, you need a little bit of something because it's gonna dry you out. I keep losing track of that UOMA concealer because it's so tiny. I keep forgetting like how small what it is I'm looking for is. There it is. I mean, maybe that's not that, so I'm just used to the Givenchy. I didn't actually swatch them next to each other. I said I was going to. Let's do that. That's the Stay Woke in T1, White Pearl T1, and then here is the Givenchy. It's quite yellow by comparison. The other one's quite peach, and that's in N95. So this is a more brightening match for me, but I kind of feel like this is even better. Like I really like the appearance of it. I feel like it's the performance of the new formula, the newer formula of the Stay Woke is distorted right now by the performance of that powder, because the powder really is a decision. You put that on and like you're gonna get a powder finish. It's actually surprisingly mattifying and surprisingly higher coverage than I thought it was going to be, just because of the nature of how much water is in the formula. It's gonna lay down some product. Do I think it's freaking cool? Yes. Do I think it's probably really good for people who have more oily complexions? Actually, yes. You're not dealing with something that has oil in it, you're dealing with something that has hydration in it, has water in it. There's like nothing wrong with that, you know? It's going to help things go on less dry, but it is still quite mattifying and quite, you know, coverage increasing, if you will. So not my absolute ideal, but I do really still like it. And I'm glad that I got it because it's gonna have a use case. I don't have anything in my collection, I feel like, that does this specifically, where it does add so much coverage, but it's not like the Hourglass powder or something where when you're putting it on, you're just kind of increasing the blur. I feel like you could get too much of this powder on your face and it could start to disturb things because it is so wet. It's funky. It is funky, but like, it's also kind of awesome. So that's why we do these kinds of videos, because it's like, I want y'all to see my initial reaction to something. I think that that is actually kind of important. And also to see it go on my skin with all these other things, because honestly, like, expectation versus reality, I don't love what it's doing underneath my eyes. And for all the hydration that you would think would come from something with this much water in it, I don't think that that's what's happening, you know? I just think that like, it's not really for dry skin people as much as you would think it would be, which is interesting. It's interesting. Powders are really personal. I used to think there was no difference between any of my powders, and like, powders are so personal. I'm still a Kosas girly, okay? This is a really great idea, and it's funky and it's cool. I'm not sure I'm the customer for it, you know? Oh, talking briefly about this, I like the way that it eventually settled in, but like I said, the Kosas Dream Beam, I do feel like if I were to put enough of it on that it could be a standalone sunscreen, wow, it would be kind of yikes. You know what I mean? It would be a lot of slip, which kind of freaks me out. Like, if I had put on the right amount of it, it might have ruined everything. So yeah, interesting. Like, I want hydration, but I'm not sure that I want that much slip. And it stinks because the color cancellation factor of it and like the actual finish of it is really pretty. But I'm still just like not totally sold on recommending that. These, oh man, Really enjoying these. These are really great. The NARS Afterglow liquid blushes, and sure is a good thing because I bought all 6 because I wanted to do a deep dive. If they had if like the formula had been disappointing, I would have just returned them. That's what I would have done. But I'm super impressed with these so far. I'm really excited to do the deep dive on them, do like some wear tests, show y'all how they layer, show y'all like their best use cases. But so far, they really remind me of somewhere in between like the Natasha Denona Puff Paint or the Dew Blushes from Saie and like the Charlotte Tilbury, in the sense that they don't stain when you put them on the skin, and then you can move them around with a brush after you place them, and how easy it is to do that on multiple finishes of makeup, and you know how it interacts so well with different types of products. So I am so far quite impressed with them. I like that they have a complete dry down, and they are still like serum-y looking on the skin, and they don't have any slip, which is really, really cool. So big fan of these so far. First impression is just like, yay. I had the Ash and Ember eye sets before, as you see. You know, I own this one, and I believe I've had this shade or something similar to it in this size before and like decluttered it or whatever. I've also tried the creamy one. Not a fan of that one. I don't even know if they still make it. Beautiful formula, blends for days. You know, you kind of have to like make some conscious decisions about building it up because you could wipe it away if you blended for too long. It doesn't really commit all that well on its own, but like if you like a Melt Cosmetics eyeshadow or you like an Anastasia eyeshadow, like from the satin finish standpoint, they're really similar. And if you're used to working with that, then you're gonna really like these, you know, and the colors are gorgeous. I love the way that they layered. I love how kind of subtle, but also effective the sheen is on it, because it's not giving me something like wildly glittery, but it is still interesting. And I feel like it's a really cool look, you know? And I really appreciate that they listened to everybody and did, you know, redo their component, because this is just way better. Still really digging this Saie bronzer, mainly because of the shade. I think that the formula is something that exists a lot of other places, and so it's like, I'm glad that it's as good as other ones that I've tried, but the Fair Bronze shade is kind of kicking butt, you know? Kind of awesome. I get kind of excited, like I'm starting to get like those happy tingles when I interact with it or when I think about interacting with it, and that's gonna keep it top shelf for me for now, so that's exciting, right? For me to like something from Saie that much. And, oh, the VB Brow Pencil. I still feel like it's a little dark for my taste, so just hedge your bets in that direction. Like light brown is still pretty dark. I would definitely, if you're complected like me or hair color like me or whatever, and my colors tend to work for you, go for light brown, maybe even like the next one, whatever it is. They're just a little bit rich compared to what I was expecting, so. They are committed. They have a nice kind of waxiness to them, so when you're combing them through, you almost feel like grooming your brows a little bit, which is nice. And I love the precision of the little BB tip. Very, very nice. So yeah, and also it's in like this metal coated pencil, which is just a really satisfying thing to interact with. It's a little bit heavier and it's cold when you touch it. It's just nice. You know, y'all know I'm a packaging junkie, so yeah, I really enjoy that. And then the Armani, y'all know I like the Armani Blush formulas, and we're going to, like I said, do a deep dive on all the shades that are similar to this. I pulled so many. I've got everything from Gucci to Make Beauty, Phytosurgeons, M Cosmetics, Buxom, Clinique, MAC, like Tower 28, Curewise. We're going to deep dive on all these kinds of shades so that we can, you know, notice the nuance differences between them and everything. It might be a face swatch video. It's gonna be a weird face swatch video. It's gonna be kind of like the skin tint face swatch video where it's like, I don't see anything. Khaki, what are you doing? Like, I gotta make sure my lighting is impeccable. So anyway, those are all the vibes today. I am just like in my new moon bag. Am I not? Oh, 4 eyes. Yeah, this is the vibe today. I hope y'all enjoyed this. I hope y'all enjoyed hanging out today. The questions weren't particularly salacious today, so either I'm sorry or you're welcome. I don't know. I'm not trying to stress anybody out. But if you did enjoy this, please do give it a thumbs up. If you're not already subscribed, I would love it if you did. I will put a video up here that I think that you will enjoy. Picked it out just for you. And I love y'all so much, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye. Down, darling, and early around.